All right, I think we're ready to get started. Appreciate everyone's patience. Hopefully you can hear us okay. So we'll now get started with the webinar itself. With that, Alex, if you could switch the slide. Great. Again, while you're all waiting, we had shown some information on our upcoming webinars. Please feel free to check those out. As of today, we'd like to welcome you all to this webinar on data oversight with essential PLM and PDM capabilities. What we'll do is we'll be going over the fundamentals of PDM, PLM. For those of you that don't know what that means, don't worry, we'll explain that as well. We'll go through a couple of workflows and just show how this tool set can help your organization-wide processes. We'll also provide insight on customer use cases and how customers are using this across a few different industries to benefit and optimize their workflows within their organization. And hopefully we can also answer the questions that you may have. So we aim to leave you at the end of this webinar with a better understanding of what PLM PDM is and how it can help your organization. And we're excited to have you. Before we get into introductions, I'll just quickly also mention that this is an interactive webinar where we will have short polling questions throughout. So we look forward to your input and it helps us better frame the material to those that are attending. However, if we don't cover everything as I mentioned and you have questions, please ask them in the question feature and we will aim to address them either by the end of the webinar or by email if we run out of time. Please also note that this presentation is being recorded and we will share the information via email as well following the session. In terms of quick introductions, so my name is Daniel Mazar and I will be your host for this webinar. I'm responsible for customer success and sales operations for Maya HTT, an engineering firm that I will introduce in a bit more detail very shortly. Joining me is my colleague, Alex Sills. Alex is a PLM consultant for us here at Maya, and we're both excited to have you and share our expertise in leveraging our engineering backgrounds to help you solve your engineering and business problems. With that, we'll move on to the next slide and walk you through a little bit about Maya. So this webinar, as I mentioned, is hosted by Maya HTT, a leading provider of digital engineering solutions and the #1 global partner for Siemens Solutions out there. Our history is in the aerospace industry where we started in working on software related to simulation, but we've been working with multiple industries on complex engineering challenges for over 3 decades now, with offices in the US, Canada, and the United Kingdom. Quite a bit of our workforce is technical in nature, with over 75% of our staff being scientists and engineers. Both Alex and I as well have that engineering background, as I mentioned. And again, if you'd like more information, do feel free to check out our website or let us know and we can answer more questions for you. With that, we'll move on to the next slide. As I explained a little bit of Maya more holistically, we're only covering a small subset today in terms of our expertise in talking about PDM and PLM, but our expertise ranges quite well beyond PLM. And we just wanted to share that with you so you're aware in case you had more questions about these different domains. For example, we're enabling companies in creating their own digital representation or digital twin, let's say, of either product design, product validation through simulation, even manufacturing, and even getting into in-service type products, being able to cover that. An area of growth that we've seen really with the tremendous interest is on AI and machine learning applications, being able to set up and capture data schemas correctly. For example, perhaps something in the field or something that's operational, and then being able to turn that data into valuable business knowledge, maybe looking at things such as predictive maintenance and others. So really leveraging our industry background, our strong technical expertise, and being able to help organizations hit their engineering goals. Again, today we'll be talking about PDM and PLM, which is one section, but there's a lot more to this story. So if you have additional questions that we won't be covering today, please don't hesitate to reach out to us. With that, I'm going to pass it over to Alex, who's now going to bring us through the next segment of the presentation. Take it away, Alex.
Perfect. Thanks a lot, Dan. Welcome, everyone. So we'll start right away. So here's your typical product lifecycle curve. Companies today obviously strive to minimize the early portion of that curve to reduce costs associated with getting the product out to market. And they want to maximize the top part of the curve, representing revenues and time on the market. Let's now look at what happens when we implement a PLM solution like Teamcenter to your typical lifecycle curve. So a company like Hyundai Heavy Industries, which is the world's largest shipbuilder, reduced its annual cost by $9.8 million. Oops, just going the other way. Sorry for that. There you go. Teradyne saw an 84% reduction of engineering change order cycle time, so going from 90 to 14 days, so a drastic decrease. SpaceX boosted its productivity by 50%, reaching profitability way earlier in the life cycle of their products. HSAE, on the other hand, increased its market shares by 10%, and finally, Ford decreased its warranty costs by $100 million. So using this new data to update the life cycle curve, we get the following: a reduction of cost, a faster launch of your product resulting in earlier profitability, an increased market success, and a postponed retirement. So through this webinar, I will introduce you to PDM and PLM and how your SMBs can basically take control of your product data to achieve similar results. Before getting into the gist of PDM and PLM, I'll quickly define these three acronyms. This three-letter acronym, sorry for that. So PDM stands for Product Data Management. And as the name says, PDM helps you manage all the data related to your products. So whether it is back of the envelope calculations or CAD files, a PDM solution helps you in keeping track of the different revisions and making sure internal naming conventions are followed across the board, for example, making sure that it's easy for your employees to find what they're looking for. Specifically, PDM is one type of PLM application that takes control of designs, documents, bill of materials, and processes, primarily to drive engineering efficiency and productivity, but also to improve collaboration across the business. PLM, on the other hand, stands for Product Lifecycle Management, and it extends the benefits of PDM to support the whole business across the product lifecycle. So from the very first idea for a product all the way through until it is retired and disposed of, with specialized applications for every department across your business.
So then, thank you, Alex. As mentioned, we'll have some polls throughout. So if you can go ahead and look at your GoToWebinar section, we're going to go ahead and launch our first poll here. So you should be seeing it on your screen shortly. So starting off, again, just to help us understand, are you satisfied with your current data management in place? Pretty straightforward in terms of the questions. So with the options there, very satisfied, somewhat satisfied, indifferent, somewhat unsatisfied, or very unsatisfied. I'm guessing you have a version of this, so that's why you're on this webinar today. But again, we'd like to hear a little bit of what you're looking to do so that we can better tailor our presentation. So we'll give it another about 20 seconds or so if you'd want to go ahead and just fill out that information. And then from there, we'll go ahead and move it forward. Great. We'll give it just another 10 seconds and then move on. All right. With that, I'm going to go ahead and close the poll on our end. So some very interesting data coming in place where essentially nobody at all voted that they were very satisfied, which I think would explain why they're here in the webinar trying to learn more. The majority of the respondents work sort of towards the middle of the scale where you're either indifferent, somewhat unsatisfied, or in some cases somewhat satisfied, but a small handful of attendees actually put themselves in the very unsatisfied bucket. So as you can see, Alex, we're seeing it skew more towards the bottom half of that gradient that we presented. So lines up with what we were thinking in terms of the attendance, but hopefully that helps with the material you're putting together. So with that, Alex, I'll pass it back to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. I hope we can introduce a better solution maybe for attendees today. So the way I'm gonna present this is basically we'll look at some challenges faced by SMBs, or basically by your typical SMB, and we'll look at how Teamcenter can help you and solve these challenges. So the first challenge we'll look at is data management. So for most of the 20th century, businesses have been splitting their resources in departments. So each one of them would be responsible for very specific tasks. Marketing would decide which products we needed, engineering team would design them, manufacturing produced them, and the sales and services would get them out to the market, to the customers. Such a departmental structure made a lot of sense, and specialists in their field are usually the best workers to carry out the activities related to that specific department. For example, who's better suited than engineers that are trained in school and later on in their workplace to tackle the engineering challenges of a business? Probably no one, right? So the problem with such a rigid departmental structure is that most of the time, the work conducted by specialists is extended way past their specialty, and they start deciding everything about the department's operation. So this results in all departments working their own specific way and having independent ways of organizing activities, documents, data, and computer systems, to name a few. The incompatibilities between departments that result of such inconsistent methods lead to contradictory versions of the same data and duplicate activities. Basically, this very rigid and compartmental method of executing work results in each department being their own separate entity inside of your business. So when each departments are separated by the way they're working internally, and the data each department holds is often hard to share across the business. So in that case, we like to say the information is siloed, meaning the data is stuck inside of its department and very time consuming for outside workers to retrieve. These information silos make collaboration across the business a difficult task. And let's face it, there will definitely come a time in the life cycle of your products where some data will be required by multiple departments. This is usually where the fun begins. So let's imagine for a second that engineering is working on a new product for which marketing is preparing a launch campaign. Marketing might require a copy of a 3D model, and lucky enough, the only designer working on that project might be on vacation for the next 2 weeks, let's say. So since the data is not managed properly in the engineering department, because engineers are not necessarily experts at managing data, which takes us back to the point I was making earlier, no one else in the department is able to put their hands on said 3D model. Marketing will obviously be forced to wait for the worker's return in order to finish their project, and this results in a lot of time wasted by many people to try and retrieve the data, and marketing will have to rework their schedule around since they're missing valuable information to complete their ongoing tasks. This is a pretty straightforward and simple example, but the goal really here was to illustrate how such simple and easy tasks can quickly add up and consume valuable time. And I'm pretty sure that right now you guys are probably thinking of such tasks that occur daily or weekly inside of your businesses that cost you a bunch of time. It was actually shown that 25% of companies waste more than 20% of their technical time on non-productive data management tasks. This literally means that a typical engineer working in your business wastes one full day a week doing work that adds no value to your company. So if we think about it, finding a way to properly manage your data across your business and making it more easy to share would mean you could perform the same work 5 engineers used to do with only 4 of them. And this is exactly what PDM tries to tackle. Which brings us to our second question.
Great. Thank you, Alex. So I'm going to go ahead and launch that. I think you've been sharing some very valuable information and walking us through how those data silos work. So I think with that, we see a good segue into the second question, which you should all be seeing now. So how do you store your product-related data? And again, there could be multiple different options here. So feel free to select all those that apply. First and foremost is a single PDM PLM system. Second, multiple PDM PLM systems. Third, a shared network drive. Fourth, a user workstation or hard drive. And fifth, other, because there's just so many different storage mechanisms in place that we wanted to leave it open. So please go ahead, just take a couple of seconds and help fill that out. as we see that information coming in. I think it'll help us better tailor the next segment as Alex goes a little bit deeper into these topics. Great. Again, we'll give it just another 10 seconds or so, and I think we're seeing the majority of people having filled out the information here. All right. So with that, we're going to go ahead and close that poll. Just to give you some insight over there, again, we had multiple options available, which is why there's different percentages. But majority of you have some form of shared network drive in place, which again would be typical to organizations, I'd say, looking to have some kind of PDM PLM system in place. There is a large number that said that you would have data stored at some form of either user workstation or hard drive, which again would be less suitable as we look at some of the share type mechanisms and processes that organizations are looking to put into place. So definitely some room for improvement there. And finally, a handful have said either single or multiple PDM PLM systems, as well as other, where we can't really see with the other data. I think we'll look at it a little bit later and see there's more information in place. But really the majority would say either shared network drive or putting it on their user workstation. But again, there's multiple options, so we see it skewed a little bit. With that, Alex, I'll go ahead and pass it back to you.
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. So very interesting answers. I think that next portion will be interesting. So yeah, let's jump into it. So with Teamcenter, your data all sits inside a single database, meaning that collaboration now becomes straightforward. The access to the data is fully customizable, ensuring that the right information is presented to the right user, not more, not less. So this allows you to do things like easily sharing data with your customers who can give you constant feedback by accessing 3D models and other specific documents without you having to worry about intellectual property leaks. On the other hand, you also probably want to make sure that your manufacturing team, for example, have access to drawings and CAD models for them to complete their tasks, while ensuring your engineers have writing permission to most of the design data so that they can come up with better products more easily. Delivering enterprise-wide product visibility through a single source of product data that is reliable and up-to-date allows you to leverage the input from everyone across the life cycle, ultimately resulting in stronger products. Which brings us to the first video I have today to present you. So this is basically for some of you your first introduction to what Teamcenter looks like. So this is basically the home page. So when a user logs into his Teamcenter account, that is what you see. So it has this nice Windows 10 feel to it with the different tiles, very intuitive with the different images. So Teamcenter is accessed through your web browser. So whether it is Internet Explorer, Google Chrome, Firefox, whichever web browser you guys are comfortable using, you access Teamcenter through that, which makes it very, very versatile because you can access Teamcenter either on your desktop, on your laptop, on your phone, on your tablet, which is great if you're, for example, I don't know, going through, you're on the shop floor and you want to verify a dimension real quick. You can simply pull out your phone and quickly verify the dimensions on the plan. So what we'll look at through this video here is the powerful search tool of Teamcenter. So in the top right of your screen, you see the search bar, which is basically works like your Google search bar. So here in this case, in this example, I'm looking for a battery pack. So by entering the word battery here and clicking the search button, I get automatically pulled to the search result. So here on the right, you have the different categories. And on the left, which is really great with Teamcenter, is you have all these different filtering options, which is a little bit like your favorite e-commerce website, I would say. What's great about it is that obviously it helps you find data and information that you know is there a lot faster, but it also helps you in finding information that you don't necessarily know is there. So when you start a project, for example, you're a new employee, you're not sure if the company has ever worked on something similar to what you're tackling. Well, you can just do a quick search, and with these filtering options, you'll quickly identify if it has been done before, really helping you in reusing all that data that you have stored on your database. So here in this case, I'm going to look for a part, an assemble part, and in a couple of clicks, I find the battery pack that I'm looking for. So here you see a quick overview, and you have these different tabs here at the top. So here in the relation tab, very interesting, you see everything that is attached to the battery pack and also where it's being used. Next, we'll look at the history tab, which tells us a little more about what has happened to this specific item previously. And again, here we see the attachments as well as where it's being used. So here in this case, I want to take a closer look at the handrail assembly. And here, basically, we get, by one click, we get automatically pulled to the handrail assembly. Here, I'll pause the video real quick to talk about the 3D visualization tool that comes with Teamcenter. So here, what you see basically is an assembly of the handrail that uses a JT file format, which is basically a lightweight CAD file. It has the same dimensions. It has the same items inside of it. You can take measurements. You can take section cuts of that. You can really investigate the 3D model very easily. And what this allows you to do is it makes your products a lot more available for people across your business. Some people are not necessarily all that familiar with 2D drawings and 2D plans. So with this 3D visualization tool, everyone has access or a better feel to your product. What it also does is it allows you to, it helps you in, actually you're sure that you don't need any extra CAD licenses, to see this 3D image. So basically, anyone that has a Teamcenter license and that has access to Teamcenter has access to this 3D visualization tool. And here, as you'll see, we'll click on the right housing panel, and you see it appear in the object tree on the left, and you can hide it and investigate the inside of the handrail more. So very intuitive, very easy to use, as you can see, which brings us now to our second challenge, that is about workflows. So traditionally, and mainly because of how a typical SMB is usually separated in departments managing their own data, like we mentioned earlier, SMBs have been using a serial type of workflow, meaning that work would be passed from one department to another. And when everything goes according to plan and no issue come up during the development of the product, this method can be quite successful. However, we all know, you guys probably better than myself, how difficult it can be to bring a product to market. And most of the time, some sort of problem will occur during the development for which a change is required. This is a major issue when working through a serial workflow. Let's say, for example, that marketing conducts many surveys in their customer base, and they come up with a new product idea. They send the requirements to engineering, who designs a complete solution and sends it to manufacturing. Manufacturing receives the project and notices that one component is impossible for them to manufacture. So what they do is they send this back to engineering to solve the issue. Engineering takes a couple of days, finds a workaround and fixes the problem, sends it back to manufacturing, who proceeds, and the product ends up being sold to a couple of clients and service installs it. After a while, marketing starts getting a lot of complaints from customers saying they do not really like the product. And after digging more into the issue, marketing finally realizes that a change has been made without them being aware of it, and that the initial requirements are not fully met anymore, which causes the customers to be unsatisfied in this case. This is a simple and quick example to show how one small detail not going according to plan in a serial workflow can result in higher costs and unsatisfied customers. And the reason for this tiny detail to cause such a big issue is that communication between the departments, as I mentioned earlier, is often lacking, and workers are not necessarily aware who should be involved when a change is required. So usually inside of a serial workflow, workers are relying a lot on people either inside of the department or with departments they are receiving or sending data to. But they don't have this global view of the company when some issue come up. So with a proper PLM implementation, that allows you to manage your workflows by tailoring them to your needs. And not only will you ensure that changes are being dealt with properly and that the right people get notified whenever their input is required, you will now ensure that workers across your business are able to raise concerns, thus increasing collaboration and not losing any valuable input. So since Teamcenter's data is all interconnected, you're always certain that a user getting notified to work on a certain task will have access to the right data needed to perform it. So no need for him to waste time finding instructions or specs and data. Everything comes bundled up with the task at hand. So when the user is done with its task, Teamcenter will notify the next assigned user and that his input is required on the project. This obviously takes away the need for your employee to personally notify the next person in the workflow. On the slide here, what we see is an example of a process for a change request revision. So you can create your custom workflows without any programming skills inside of Teamcenter. You can simply drag and drop the tiles in your workflow and play around with them until you're satisfied. So the next video that I have here, we will look at how simple it is to submit an item to a workflow. So here in this case, we see again the right housing panel that we were looking at earlier. And here, basically by just a quick click and so 2 clicks and you submit this to the development release. Here in this case, what we'll do before actually submitting it is we're going to assign a reviewer. So someone that will have to review the item before it's done with the workflow. So here in this case, we're assigning Mary to it, submitting the workflow. And next, here we are inside of Mary's environment. And here you see that inside of her inbox, she gets notified that she needs to perform a sign-off on her object here. So quickly, she can identify all the attached documents. So everything comes bundled up, as I mentioned earlier. And then she sees the workflow where it's at. So here you see, obviously on the previous slide, we saw a pretty complicated workflow, but here you see it's a very simple and straightforward workflow. So as I was saying, you can really configure this to your needs. And then in the next tab, you see the decisions that have been made by other reviewers. So here again, Mary's going to approve this item. So she leaves a comment, and by clicking on the approve button, it sends it down to the rest of the workflow. Great. So this brings us to our third challenge, which is about integration. So your employees are probably using a multitude of different softwares to accomplish their day-to-day work. And each worker is used to certain softwares and their environment, and it makes sense that they want to keep working inside of them. That is why Teamcenter gets easily integrated to the softwares your team is already using. Teamcenter supports most CAD and CAM softwares, allowing your people to get access to all Teamcenter functionalities directly from inside of their favorite environment. Which brings us to our next question about ECAD and MCAD.
Excellent. Thank you, Alex. I'm going to go ahead and make those available. While we're doing that, just a friendly reminder, if you have your own questions, please feel free to ask them. We've seen some trickle in, but wanted to send a quick reminder there. We'll get to them towards the end. Now, as Alex is talking about integration, we want to just have a better understanding of what are some of the CAD tools that are being used. So firstly, we just want to know about the mechanical CAD tools or software that are being used right now, as it'll relate a little bit to our upcoming presentation. So what are the MCAD softwares you're currently using within your organization? SolidWorks, NX, Solid Edge, CATIA, or other. So if you could just take a few seconds and put that in place, that would help us. We have a good understanding of what's out there in market. Again, we just wanted to know curiously what it would look like in terms of the attendees here today. So we'll give it just another few seconds. Hopefully this doesn't take too much brain power, just because you either know or you don't when it comes to your CAD tool. Okay, great. So as expected, a majority of respondents mentioned SolidWorks, which again is a lot that we see in industry. However, a good chunk is also using Solid Edge, which again has does compare SOLIDWORKS in terms of the capabilities level. We do have a handful that are using NX and CATIA, but let's say a smaller group in terms of this session here today. So with that, we just wanted to know, going from NCAD, as again, we're talking more about integration here, as we had a question on ECAD as well. So just the two-part poll over here. So on the electronic CAD side, what's the ECAD software that you're using? Excuse me. We put some of the examples we've seen with companies we work with. So Altium, CADS, Allegro, OrCAD, or other. Again, there are integrations in place, especially we're looking at collaborating between MCAD and ECAD. We wanted to have a better understanding on the MCAD side. We talked a little bit about SOLIDWORKS, Solid Edge, and some of the more higher end or tools that have more features available. On the ECAD side, we'll just give it another couple of seconds. And again, you may not know, but of the tools present, we'd be curious as to which are the ones that are being used right now. We'll give it another 5 seconds or so. It's okay if you aren't aware. Perfect. With that, we'll close off that poll. Again, we're seeing that Altium and PADS are the two that are being used. However, a good chunk of you are not using any of the tools that are mentioned in that list. You've mentioned more so other. Can't see that data as per the presentation here, but we'll take a look at it after. However, knowing that a high percentage using Altium and PADS helps us in terms of the positioning and the discussion for integration with this next session. So with that, in this section, I'll pass it back over to Alex. Alex, take us away, please.
Thanks, Dan. So yeah, we'll stay in the integration portion of this presentation, and we'll look at an example actually of how Teamcenter gets integrated inside of your CAD software. So here in this case, we're looking at the integration side of NX. So here, as you see on the bottom, on the middle left, I would say, you have the Teamcenter button, and it pops up this view here of Teamcenter, which is basically the same as we saw in the first video. So here in this case, again, we're looking for a battery, and we want to add the battery pack to our assembly on the right. So with a couple clicks here again, I select the battery pack that I want, and then I can investigate it first before adding it to my assembly. So here in this case, I'm going to take a quick look at it in the 3D visualization tool, and by a simple click, I can add this inside of NX. And there you go. So now what you'll see is obviously you'll see that it gets added to the assembly tree. On the left, you'll see that the battery pack is now added there. And obviously by saving this assembly now, it gets automatically saved inside of your Teamcenter database. Great. So here you see some of the major engineering softwares that can get integrated with Teamcenter. So the great thing about this interconnectivity is that you could have a bill of material with components designed in each one of these tools, and Teamcenter can then manage all that data and bring everything together inside of a single multi-domain bill of materials. So a multi-domain bill of material allows you to have a better global view of your product and ultimately take better decisions. Teamcenter's integration is obviously not limited to engineering softwares like CAD and CAM, but it also extends to softwares like Word, Excel, Adobe that can also be integrated with Teamcenter. That's what we'll look at. So here in the next video, we'll take a look at the Microsoft Word integration. So here at the top, you see the Teamcenter tab. And by clicking new to create a new document here in this case, so I'm going to select the object type. And here what I'll do is I'll assign it an item ID and a revision, as well as I'll give it a name. And then next I'll choose a document template so that I've already assigned to my environment. So here in this case, it automatically populates the Word document with the template that I want. And then what we'll do is we'll save this document. Obviously, it's going to save it again inside of Teamcenter's database, and then we'll submit it to a workflow. So here we're going to submit it to the document review workflow. And now let's imagine we're another user and we need to perform sign-off on this document. So you'll see here that you get notified again inside of your inbox, and then obviously the document comes with the notification, right? So you don't need to look for it. Here you can leave comments very easily. And here in this case, obviously we'll reject this item, and it sends it back to the previous user, who will be notified that he needs to perform a rework on the document. So here in this case, just adding the request to the document, commenting here, and then we'll submit it to the rest of the workflow, and we'll mention that we have completed it. Great. So that brings me to Siemens' solutions that are more specific for SMBs. So in the last couple of years, Siemens has put a major emphasis on coming up with more affordable solutions that would better suit the small and medium-sized businesses. They have focused on getting SMBs set up with lower cost options that allow for a greater flexibility. So the first solution that I want to present is Teamcenter Rapid Start. So Rapid Start is a pre-configured PDM solution, which can be deployed in a couple of weeks and help you leverage best data management practices. So through Rapid Start, Siemens created an out-of-the-box PDM solution with basic functionalities like document management, visualization, change, and bill of material management, which allow you to really take control of cross-domain product information and processes while minimizing the initial costs related to consulting and services. This allows you to quickly get your return on investment. The great thing about Rapid Start is that it grows with you and your company. So this allows you to start with a simple and straightforward PDM solution and add Teamcenter modules whenever you feel the need to grow your PDM platform into a full-blown PLM solution. The next great option for SMBs is Teamcenter X, which is an instant-on software as a service solution that Siemens has developed based on their past PLM expertise. Teamcenter X is basically thousands of past PLM deployments bundled in a simplified, pre-configured solution with built-in PLM practices. All the maintenance and upgrades are directly managed by Siemens, so you won't have to worry about being up to date, and you can keep your focus on getting your products out to the market. Teamcenter X's environment is also easily customizable and grows with you, just like Rapid Start. So when you feel the need to expand your solution, you can simply add in more functionalities to your environment by choosing them from Teamcenter's solution portfolio. With Teamcenter X, you only pay for what you use, and you get to decide what is needed for your business at any given point in time. So this brings me to a case study on Sparkonics, which is an SMB that has revenues of about 10 million. And what Sparkonics does is they manufacture and export EDM and metal arc disintegrators. And they also deliver innovative solutions in steel rebar bending and handling, as well as construction technology. They're using Solid Edge with Teamcenter. And basically, their main challenges was they needed to manage a growing amount of CAD data more effectively. They wanted to speed the product development. They needed to facilitate reuse of design data while improving the control of the access to the data. The keys to their success was selecting a PDM solution that requires a minimal IT expertise to support and maintain. So they chose Teamcenter Rapid Start to get their PDM up and running quickly, while also automating their data management process. The result of that was they reduced their design time by 25%, enabling designers to spend less time storing, searching, and retrieving data. And they also reduced their inventory by standardizing on limited number of part sizes, while also streamlining. They streamlined and kept better track of their process workflows. So to sum this all up, with a proper PLM implementation, your business will take control over its product data and processes. PLM is now made accessible for companies of all sizes through RapidStart and Teamcenter X. And your PLM solution grows with you whenever you are ready. So finally, I want to thank you all for attending this webinar. I really hope you have a better understanding about how a PDM or PLM solution can help your business reach the next level. If you'd like to get more into the specifics of how Teamcenter works and how it can suit your business specifically, I invite you to reach out to our PLM team, and we will be more than happy to discuss this over with you. So I guess next we'll jump into the Q&A session. So if you have any questions for us, feel free and ask them.
Perfect. Thank you, Alex. Fantastic conclusion in summarizing all that you presented here today. I think there's a lot of learnings that came through and across. So I'm just going to go ahead and review the questions and see what we have. And then I'll add a little bit of context as I read through them, as I understand them.
Yeah, perfect.
Alex, you touched a lot on Teamcenter and the workflows. Can you talk a little bit more about deployment? The question really is, are you able to do a cloud-based deployment? Could you just touch on some deployment options available when it comes to Teamcenter?
Yeah, sure. So basically, it's up to the customer's preferences, basically. So you could definitely do a cloud-based deployment. You can also do a on-premise or a hybrid version of that. So yeah, there's no problem with the on cloud.
Perfect. Yeah, I agree. Cloud, hybrid, on-prem is all available options. Great. If a company wanted to, this person just saying, where should we start if we want to implement a PDM solution? What would you say to that, Alex?
I think that the best way to start and to start thinking about an implementation of a PDM or PLM solution would really, I think the best way would just start by having a conversation and discuss this with us. Obviously, every company is different and needs specific things. So I think obviously this presentation was pretty global, I'd say. But then again, yep, every company is different. So I think just sitting down and having a discussion and looking at what are your specific needs, I think that's the best way to start, really.
Yeah, that's a great point. And starting with the conversation, for those that are attending, we'll be making a complimentary discovery session available to you afterwards. So feel free to reach out to us. We'll send an email and summarizing or going over the presentation, but we'd be happy to have that initial conversation to the person who asked the question as well as others. And the last one we have here is if I have tools outside the ones that were mentioned, like an ERP system, is it possible to connect that with Teamcenter? How would you respond to that, Alex?
Yeah, that's a great question. So obviously the slides with the different tools, that's just some of the integration that are possible with Teamcenter. So I mean, there's most engineering softwares obviously you're able to integrate them with your Teamcenter platform. But other than that, if we're talking about ERP systems, for example, you can definitely import and export data to and from Teamcenter without any major problems. As long as you get the data in a supported format, then there is really no problem about connecting it to other softwares used across a business.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Alex. I think that covers everything. If you have more questions or if you'd like to ask something afterwards, please again don't hesitate to get in touch with us. As I mentioned in the beginning, this will be recorded and shared, so you can expect that later this week. Beyond the additional questions, as we mentioned in the beginning as well, we do have a number of webinars and remote activities happening, whether covering on the PDM PLM side, but also going beyond to some of the other areas that were mentioned. So do check those out. Lastly, we make these webinars for you as we want to make them educational and relevant. So following this, as we sent the information on the recording, we'd also love to get your feedback on how you think this presentation went, what you enjoy, what you felt could be better. So please don't hesitate to share that information with us, as well as, again, we want to make these as relevant as possible. With that, I'd like to thank all of you for your time and your attendance and attention. Also like to thank Alex for his fantastic presentation. We look forward to your feedback and to hearing from you. Wish you guys have a great day, and looking forward to staying in touch. Thank you so much.